Hello Internet, today we're gonna learn how to import our data into Power BI and how to create a model out of it. This is Daniel from Construction Planet. Keep watching. In our last video, we did a little bit introduction about Power BI, saw how it works, saw its underlying mechanics, and get a little bit dive into the interface. Now in today's video, first we will look into our dataset that we want to import it into Power BI. So let's go towards the dataset. Now let's dive into the dataset of our arbitrary project, that is Project Compass. Our dataset consists of two files, namely one is the lookup Excel file and other is the Project Compass Excel file. The Project Compass Excel file stores all the data that will be required for modeling and visual representation of our dashboard, and the lookup file just consists of the lookup tables. The lookup in Power BI works in this way. You have to consider it like a looking glass. Other example could be the filters that we use in our Excel sheets to filter out different kinds of data. That filter fields are stored separately in a table in the lookup file. The actual purpose of the lookup file will be made more clear once we go into the modeling tab. The fields in the lookup file will be utilized to link with different tables of the model tab in order to filter out our data in two different categories and as per need. First, we will review our main dataset. The main dataset comprises of several sheets, namely KPIs, RFI, cash flows, change request, and schedule. The KPI sheet consists of the SPI and CPI data for complete duration of the project till date. Along with it, it also considers the goal. The next sheet in our dataset is for RFI log. The RFI logs consist of all the RFIs raised on the project till date, along with their initiation date, closure date, their domain, description, the initiating party, the party that should respond to that query, their average response time if it is closed, and if it is open then there will be no response time here. Then we go towards the cash flow. There are two columns, planned and actual cash flow for each month, and in the bottom you can see there is a total cash flow of the projects till date. And in the change request you have change request ID, its date, domain, type, description of change, the raising party, its status, either it is approved and disapproved, its CR amount, and then we have three columns related to approved amounts, rejected amount, or pending amount. The purpose of adding three columns, approved, rejected, and pending amount, here is to bifurcate the total CR amount. Sometimes in project scenario there lies certain cases where the total CR amount is not approved. Some of it is approved and some of it is rejected. So in this way you can document all the three amounts for a specific PR. If it's not the case, then you can have single column and you can filter out the different amounts with respect to status column in Power BI. But for our purpose we need to have three columns. Then in schedule, what I have done is I have copied all the column fields from the NS project schedule into an Excel file. One additional thing that I have done is I have added a column of ID in the Microsoft project schedule. So when you go into the Power BI and open this schedule sheet, you need to have some column from where you can sort out the project task. If you do not add the ID here, then all the project tasks will be sorted out by their alphabetical order or some other way. But for schedule we need to have these tasks specifically sorted out as per this order in order to better explain them to our audience. Therefore I have added an ID column here manually. Another thing you have to notice that I started my task ID with 11 instead of 0 or 01. This is another issue with Power BI. When you go to filter out or sort out this activity, the 1 is considered first, then 2, then 3, then 4. So if we go with 01, that will be considered in Power BI as 1. It will neglect 0. So you need to start 11 in this case. Now let's explore the second file that we have is of lookup table. If you look closely, then our lookup table considered all the ways we want to sort our data in Power BI. Like we can sort our data by stakeholders, we can sort our data by domain, we can sort our CRs or RFIs by their status. I have two separate sheets for RFIs and CR because CR has approved, reject, and pending status, while RFI has open and closed status. Then I can also sort out data with respect to CR types and last but not the least is the RFI response target. This value I have taken into account for, because when you go into Power BI and model or visualize the dial gauge, you need to give some target in order for it to work properly. So in our case, 3 days was the target response time for any stakeholder in this project. Another thing that I would like to clarify here is that when you look into our main data set, all the tables are very human friendly. You have titles above, you have colorfully formatted sheets which can be read by humans easily. You have cash flows along with its total. So it is very human friendly sheet. But when you will import it into Power BI, we have to take this human friendliness out of it and make it machine friendly because of 2 reasons. First reason is to make the file size smaller, so it will make our processing time much fast in Power BI. And the second reason would be the machine or computer do not want to know the color formatting of it to understand the data. It is just for humans. So when we import it into the Power BI, we will see how to make this data more machine friendly. As we have looked into our data set, now it's time to import this data into Power BI. So we will jump into Power BI and load our data. I have opened my Power BI client on the desktop, and first thing I need to do is cross out this dialog box. Now the second thing that I would like to do is save my project as soon as it is created. So I will save it in a location and I will name it dashboard and save it. So we have initiated Power BI and save our project. Now let's just import our dataset that we have shown earlier. To import the data, what you have to do is click on the get data button there. From here you have multiple options to import different kinds of data into Power BI. There are many options available like MySQL database, text, CSV, or complete website or complete databases. But our data is available in the Excel file format, so we have to load the Excel files into it, for which you click the Excel button here. So it will take you towards your folder where your data is stored. From here, first I would like to upload my Project Compass main data set, and click on Project Compass and click open. It will take some time depending on the size of your file, and eventually it will load and dialog box from where you can select your data. We have our navigator window here. If you remember, in our Excel file we have different sheets in that workbook. Similarly, the Power BI have shown different sheets that we can import from that Excel workbook. We required all these fields, so I will check all of them. And before loading it into my Power BI model, what I would like to do is transform my data. If you remember back in this video where I was explaining that we have to modify our data set to more machine friendly point of view, this is the time where you will modify your data set, for which instead of clicking load, you need to click on the transform data button. When you click on transform data button, a separate window will be open from your Power BI desktop client where you will transform your data. To understand this interface, let us go to the cash flow sheet. On the right hand side of the window, there are certain steps which Power BI intelligently applied to our sheet, and by clicking these steps you can see the history of it, what has been applied automatically by Power BI. So if I click on source, this is my source sheet, and in the navigation, this is the first form of sheet that Power BI has loaded. As you can see in the cells there is nothing written, it has put it null, and it has already wiped out all the color formatting from it. Next step done by Power BI intelligently is that it has changed the headers of my columns. You see in the navigation you have column 1, column 2, column 3, and in the next step it automatically promoted some of it to my header. And in the third step it has changed the types of my fields. These steps are automatically applied, but I want to control these steps up to my liking. So what I would do is I would cancel out these steps from the crosshair and I will go to the basic navigation set. Now first thing that I would like to do to make it more machine friendly is to delete these top 2 rows. These are of no value to us. How to delete these top 2 rows is to go to the remove rows button, click it and click remove top rows, and it will ask you the number of rows you want to remove. So I want to remove the top 2 rows, so I will write 2 here and click OK. Now other thing I notice is that I have a total value present here. This is also of no value to us because in Power BI when we go towards visualizations, then I have an option present there from where I can calculate the total of this column automatically into the visuals. Or the other method would be to apply a tax measure. A tax measure is like an Excel formula that you can apply in the Power BI visualization. So I would not be requiring this total here, so I need to remove this row from the bottom also. So similarly, like we remove the top row, we can remove the bottom row also, and we will remove the bottom one row from our sheet. The third step, what I want to do is to make the first row of my sheet as column headers, because this will be the names through which my data will be identified later on throughout this model. How can you do this is you go into the transform tab and click use first row as header. Voila, and my first row is now header of the column. The final step I would perform is to convert these two values into a currency. So how can I do this is by clicking this and changing it to fixed decimal number, and it will ask you to replace the current step or add new step, because in previous step it intelligently changed its type to whole number. I want it as a fixed number, so I will replace the current step and do not want to add a new step to it, and same goes with the actual cash flows. So now in the history you can see we started from here. First we removed the top rows, then we removed the bottom row, then we promoted the header, and in the end changed the tag. Similar kind of steps will be required for all our data set. So in the change request, I will do similarly. I will remove the top one row and change my first row to a header. In the KPI sheet, same goes. I will delete my first row and change my now first row into headers. In the RFI, same, delete the first row and change the now first row into header. And in the schedule tab, that automatically done some processing, so it is good to go till now. If required any changes in future, we can always get back to this tab and modify our data. The last step that I have to do is close and apply. So I will click close and apply here, and it will upload my data into my Power BI file. It will take some time depending on the size of data, and eventually it will load into it. Once my sheets are loaded into the Power BI, all of those sheets will be visible in this fields pane, and if I drop down any sheet, it will show me the name of the columns. Remember, we have 3 columns in our cash flow, that was actual, date and plan. It doesn't matter in which order it is shown, but it will suffice our purpose. Seeing this, one thing that I observed right now is that the Power BI is intelligently and automatically applied a function of sum to all my field where there are numbers. This is one thing that I would not like Power BI to apply automatically in our case, because I want to manually apply sum, average or count as per my need. By default, it should not be summing my field. For example, let's take a simple visual of a card here by double clicking it, and in the field put this actual into the data field of that visual, and it is automatically showing the sum of all my actual cash flows. It would be obvious to you that if you want to show the overall actual cash flow as a KPI, then it is a good thing that Power BI is automatically applied a measure. See what will happen if we take a table visual here and put the same actual value in its data field. Then here it is also showing a sum. This is not the way I wanted. If I wanted to show all the cash flows here, I will not be able to show them, because Power BI has automatically applied a sum function to it. So how to remove it? You need to go back to the Power BI kitchen where you store your ingredients, remember, and that will be the data tab. In the data tab, select the field actual, and I do not want to summarize it, so I will go to the summarization. Instead of sum, I will say I don't want to summarize it. It will work on it. And so going back to the visual pane, and in the data table I put a date alongside my actual cash flow. Now you can see it has started showing us the month wise cash flow instead of the total. So this is the functionality that I want. And in the card visual, you can see it has again automatically changed it to the sum of actual, which already fulfill our purpose. So the best thing to do is remove all the automatic measures. We call it measure. In Excel we call it a formula, in Power BI we call it a measure. The best thing to do is remove all the automatically applied measures from all these files. So I have now removed all the summaries or auto sum measures applied by Power BI from all of my fields. Going back to the visual pane, another thing that I noticed is that the currency symbol is showing as dollar. I am in Pakistan and we are working with rupees, so I do not want to show it as a dollar, I want to show it as a rupees. To change this, we will go again into our data tab and select our fields where there is some currency amount. Like in cash flows, we have actual cash flow. The symbol currently selected for this cash flow is dollar, and by clicking the dollar sign, I can change this currency symbol to the many present in the world. So I will go to the rupee symbol from here. Here it is, rupees English Pakistan. So I will select rupees for my actual field. The same step need to be revised for all my fields where there is a currency value. So now I have changed all my symbols into rupees, and if I go back to the visual tab, voila, here you see it has changed it into rupees. This was the first part of loading my data set. Remember, the second table or the second workbook in our case is the lookup table. Then I will go back to get data and click on the Excel, and from here I will select the lookup table to be loaded. Again, I will select all the lookup tables from my Excel workbook. One thing to notice here is that I have kept the name of my lookup tables or lookup sheets starting with L. So in order not to confuse it with the other sheets that are already in my dataset. And again, I will click on transform data so that I could apply the similar kind of steps that were applied to my original dataset. It has opened the query editor window. Now you can see the benefit of putting L before my lookup table sheets. I can easily identify it from my other sheets already present in the dataset. So from CR status, all things look good, but one thing that is missing is I need to change my first row as header, and it will do the purpose. CR type, same goes. Domain, same goes to it. RFI response is okay. RFI status, same. And in the stakeholder, I also want to use my first row as a column header. All things looks good. Let's import it into our main Power BI file. My lookup tables are also loaded into my data set. After loading and sorting and cutting out our ingredients in the data model, it's now time to make linkages in the model tab. Let's see how to do it. Now remember the burger making process. We have now gathered and sorted out our ingredients, and that ingredients are stored currently in our kitchen. The next step of our burger making process was to make a model, to link up the data, to link up the fields, which field belong to which lookup to which. For this purpose, we need to go to the modeling tab by clicking the model tab button here. So coming to my modeling tab, you can see all my tables are present here with linkages automatically assigned by the Power BI. I do not want these linkages assigned by Power BI as usual. I would like to create my own linkages in order to avoid any confusion going forward. So what I need to do is remove these linkages, delete linkage. Keep in mind that you have to delete the linkage only. Do not delete this table, because if you delete this table, then it will be removed from your complete dataset. So only remove the linkages. All my linkages are now removed. The way I would like to configure my model is to keep the main dataset table in the bottom and keep the lookup tables on top. It is visually easier for me to work in this way. So I will move this change request table right in the bottom. The other data table is RFI table, so I will also move this to the bottom, just like that. Now, the third data table is KPI. I will also move it to the bottom like this. The fourth will be the cash flow. It will also be kept like this. The fifth is the schedule. So these are all my data tables stuck nicely in the bottom. Now the lookup tables are those tables through which you see values or you filter out values from the data table. Remember? So these are my 3 lookup tables through which I can filter out my data, and the other 3 are these. Lookup tables are beneficial if you want to cross-reference your data between two sheets. For example, if you look into my change request data table and in RFI data table, in both tables I have a common field by the name of domain. What if in a visual I want to cross-reference these two sheets or values of these two sheets into a single visual? So I need a cross-reference point linked both of these tables for Power BI to know that this field belongs to both of the tables and it can be filtered accordingly. That's why we need to create lookup tables. So now to create the linkages between these two, what I would do is I click on the domain field and drag and drop into my change request domain field. The Power BI will create a link between these two sheets and it will know that this domain field also belongs in this change request sheet. Similarly, I will link this domain field by dragging and dropping it to the domain, and Power BI will create another relation between the two. Now if you hover over the relationship arrow, you can see these two fields are related and interlinked, and these two fields are related and interlinked. So now if in any visual I require to filter out the RFI and change request data through domain, I will not filter it through any of these two fields present inside of these two tables. Instead, I will filter out from the lookup table so the data will flow properly. This was the reason I kept the L alphabet before my lookup tables, because it will be easier in the fields panel to sort out where my lookup values lie. Another thing to notice, I have created many lookup tables just to explain you how the relationships work. In many cases, I do not require this lookup table. Like this change type is only present in change request, so I can link change type to change type, but it will not be beneficial for me to cross-reference the data. Although I have cross-referenced it, but in the larger model, try to sort it out properly and plan before in hand how your model will look like. For now, since I want to look up all my values through the lookup tables, I will link up my data. If I look into the stakeholder field, this stakeholder field in the RFI sheet is linked to multiple fields. Like this stakeholder is related to initiated by, so this is my first relation, and again this stakeholder is also related to the responded by, so this would be my second relation. Now if I hover, it is showing both my relation. Stakeholder are related to responded by and stakeholder are also presented in initiated by. So my model is now almost complete. All my data tables are sorted out accordingly. These do not have any linkages. All the fields which are linked are present here. I can again more beautify it if I want to. Now it is more presentable, and visually I can assess my model that data is flowing in which direction. The direction of the arrow shows you in which direction the data is flowing from one field to another field. So folks, this was Power BI for today. We saw our dataset, we saw how to import our dataset and create linkages in the model tab. So these tasks take approximately 80% of our time in any Power BI project. So now in 20% of our remaining time, we will see how to visualize this data that we uploaded just now into Power BI. So till the next video, keep watching and like, subscribe and share. Thank you.